what's up, everyone? It's your girl V, and welcome to another episode of Mindful Unfoldings. It's a new week, new episode, and new guests. I am so excited for today's episode. We have Mr. Elijah and Lemon from Insightful Exchange, and actually, we're in the same studio. We work in the same studio, and this is like a collab, a long-awaited collab. And how are you guys today?
We are blessed.
Why do you guys look so shy?
We're doing good.
We
We're
are
doing
very
good.
shy.
Why?
We're very shy.
That's our character. We are just like that.
Natural.
Well, thank you so much for coming to Mindful Unfoldings. Today I'm going to get straight right into it because I know we've had conversations behind the scenes and they're very lengthy. So without wasting time, today's episode is about faithful healing and resilient growth, more so on navigating trauma, forgiveness, and self-discovery. And if you guys probably don't know as my viewers, but Mr. Elijah here is a life coach. And then Mr. Lemon here is a priest. So I thought combining these topics to suit both of you guys would be more suitable in the sense of like how I'm going to ask them. So you'll see you'll be able to bounce off of each other because they very much correlate, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Are you guys comfortable? You guys look so tense.
No. We are here.
You guys are here already.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question is basically on trauma. I think that's where it all starts. I think the root of our problems sometimes, or most of the times, comes from the things that we've experienced while growing up, or just as becoming an individual of your own. And I want to know, what are the most common signs that someone has unresolved trauma? Because there are people who turn to the church when there's something that is happening in their life and they're confused. And then you obviously see patterns. And then there are people who go to life coaches or therapists. So like, what are the most common signs that, okay, you have unresolved trauma?
Yeah.
Phyllis, let me give that to you first.
Okay. Yes. Probably when one would have to build up from that, maybe before one can look into those signs, it becomes important to look in terms of where do they come from, as how people experienced traumas in their lives. That, of course, growing up, it's kind of a challenge for most people. That very few people, for instance, we know that number one, trauma comes from the household, comes from the families, as to most of the trauma comes from attachment. That many people, as they grow up from the younger age, that they lack a proper attachment with their caregivers. Mostly we look into the mother and the child relationship. That the lack of the proper mother-child relationship would have some traumas that the child has. For instance, being neglected by the primary caregiver. And then when we see that as a failure in the beginning, later in life, we mostly see the levels of traumas when a person then gets into the relationship. So relationships, basically, they become the exposition or exposing, if you may, the failures or the success of the upbringing. And if a child, for instance, was neglected, of course, we can look into a number of theories that which we can draw from. But on the simplest terms, because we want to be as simple as possible, that your viewers can really process and digest what we are saying. That if a child was neglected by the mother, of course, would look if he's a boy and a girl, because then the outcome might be slightly different, of course. Let's say a boy child that was experienced the trauma of being neglected by the mother. Later in life, then coming into your question, basically, later in life when this boy gets into the relationship, this relationship or this gap that which this boy had with an absent mother or neglected by the mother, if you may, however you put that, though there are dynamics in that. The relationship of this boy is not going to be stable. It's not going to be stable. We can see that, number one, that when he's in the relationship, will be quickly getting bored into the relationship. And here you are, a lady, really need this attachment, because this boy do not know anything about attachment, about really being in a warm relationship. So you are not going to experience that as well whenever you are in the relationship with such a man later in life. So that becomes number one, that which you get. But of course, others, they would try to compensate that and say, but now you find overcompensation. Now, when they overcompensate, when this brother later on, or this man later on then is in the relationship with you, would want to overcompensate the gap and the longing that which he had, then you'll find it that now he becomes the glue, of course, that which you probably do not want. And some other people in our language, but Lore, while actually is an overcompensation once that, because there is this gap. Now it says, there is this woman I am in love with. Now, can this woman replace my mother? Basically, that becomes the thing. The mother I did not have while I had that mother, but the mother was not there in however way, either physically present or emotional or however. So that is number one, that which we can find. And
Sure.
yeah.
Yes.
And Elijah will take it from here.
Look, I think for me, from the psychological point of view,
Yeah.
trauma can be a very broad subject because traumas emanate from a variety of circumstances. So I'm going to give you a simple example. A child who grows up being beaten at an early age might suffer from bedwetting. And people don't understand why is this child wet in the bed, but it's because of the trauma of being beaten at an early age. And you start to see it at that age. The child maybe is 8 years, 9 years, but they still, are unable to hold, their pee at night. So when we start to look at that child, we do not question why are you, unable to keep the pee. We go back to understand what happened to this child, when they were at an early age, maybe 4, 3 years or so. You may find that the child was beaten so bad that he can't hold himself. Every time they're afraid, then they just release the pee, on themselves.
Yes.
So many people don't understand the dynamic of the trauma. So you find that many people, when they grow up in families, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of neglect, abandonment issues, and then sometimes parents are too strict, but sometimes the mother, it's actually not giving the love to the child, and the child senses or feels that. Now, when this child grows up, they start to have now, detachment issues or attachment issues. And then they go into a relationship where they appear to be stoic meaning they do not show emotions. And you keep forcing this person to show you the love, but they have closed that psyche, of them releasing love, because when they were growing up, the person who was supposed to give them love at first hand did not do that. So this child is now even afraid to express their love, because what if I don't get it back? What if it's not reciprocated? So you also find that most of the people that have gone through traumatic experiences, they struggle even at school. You might see it in their performance at school. They might be failing at school for whatever reason. Not that they are not wise, not that they cannot comprehend, but there is an element of their psyche that has recorded a particular event that has caused traumatic experiences for them, that they can't progress to the next episode in their life or the next part of their life. Then we grow up with them. As they're struggling the way they're struggling, then they get into relationships. Now, human beings are creatures of relationships naturally. But you find that a person who has experienced trauma find themselves either, going from one relationship to the next without being able to hold a relationship at all. Or, like Lemon has said, they come into a relationship, but they become too attached, to you purely because they are longing for something. You find that this person, maybe their father abandoned them, and they're longing for a father. And they keep dating guys who are a bit older than them, not because they love older men, but purely because they're looking for a father. And they don't know why they are doing that. Now, unfortunately, most people who are also experiencing trauma experiences in their lives, they don't know that they're experiencing trauma. Because now you need to understand that your trauma is stored in your subconscious mind. So your subconscious mind controls 97% of your life, whereas the conscious is only accountable for 3%. So most of the things that you are doing are automatic. You are not doing them willingly. Your brain is actually, your mind is actually doing them for you. So most people don't even know that they have traumas that are controlling their lives on a daily basis. So you see a whole lot of signs that when we look at a person and we realize that this person is actually drinking a lot, their problem is not drinking. The drinking is a symptom of a trauma. So a person maybe is stealing a lot. The stealing is not an issue. There is a trauma there that when this child was growing up probably was denied a whole lot of things. So they start to decide, I'm going to take things for myself. So that's why they say somebody become a kleptomaniac. So they just start to steal for no apparent reason,
Yes.
And you start to see all those kind of behaviors, then we know that this person is carrying a trauma. Now, if I were to tell you, in fact, if I were to say 100% of us are suffering from certain traumas, because we live life through what we call defense mechanisms. Now, these mechanisms are there to protect us from these traumas that we have suffered, when we grow up. Because, even if you grow up in a family or an environment that is well off and there's love and so forth, there are certain traumas that you're going to pick up that might be as a result of maybe molestation in that kind of family. And when you grow up now with this mindset of people are not to be trusted. People can molest you. But you don't talk about this kind of experiences. We only see it in your interaction with how you relate to people that you don't have trust. Your partner keep accusing you of having trust issues, and they think it's them, but it's not them. It's trauma that you pick up from your family of origin. So most of the people that we are dealing with on a daily basis, we can pick up certain traumas just by engaging with you. For example, I'm just going to give you a simple example that you might be familiar with. You were bitten by a dog while you were young, and you go through your life having this trauma because your brain has said to you, each and every dog that you come across is going to bite you. And those kind of things are showing us, but it's not only, my concern, it's not only about the dog. You are going to have issues around being in circumstances or situations that will say to you, if you go to that place, you might be bitten by whatever. So your trauma now gets spread in other areas, not necessarily from the space of being bitten by a dog. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Maybe to come in on one other area, just to add up, bringing probably into the church context,
Yes.
in terms of the identification of such. And then when we look into the behavior of a lot of church members, so we can see some levels of traumas and more. I'm bringing more the women's side. The other time I brought the boy. Now this girl grows up without the father or being abused by the father or however. But let's put it in the very same context I brought it. The attachment,
Yes.
that is, this girl lacked the attachment of the father this time. That the father, even if he's there, never been supportive and in all of that, never been present, never spoken life and sense to this girl. Now, later, this girl is in the church. And then we have found a lot of bogus pastors that which have studied the behavior of such girls, and then they trace those kind of girls who have been in such an environment and start to abuse them. So we have found that. but also such girls, when now they are ladies or women later in life, they also, you'll find them, look, it's not wrong to respect. We need to respect equally everyone. But other people you are able to see, to say, but this one, it's a response to the trauma of an absence of the father, that which never spoken to this girl. And then these are the ones that, especially in this now, with the rise of this charismatic kind of celebrity pastoring, that which you find now, where there is a vibe that which is created, where there is an enforced of being a daddy. Yes, daddy. Yes, daddy. But look, we're coming from a very safe environment. It has never been wrong to call umfundisi babu mfundisi. You see, there is a difference, ne? Babu mfundisi. Yes, daddy. So there is a difference in that. Yes, papa. There is a difference between that and then with how the pastors have been carried as babu mfundisi, ntate muruti. But now you find that there is these ladies that you see that they develop so much attachment to the pastor, because they see in this pastor the father that they did not have, and of which initially it's not wrong. So now we call forth to say, when pastors identify that, they must not misuse the opportunity of nurturing and then protecting this girl and these women. And then now you find that most pastors, when they identify, especially when I say bogus and so on, that whenever they identify a lady of that kind, and then they follow on that lady because they know that is already weak, basically, they abuse the element of being the father to this child, but now they take it further. So those are the unfortunates that which you basically would find.
Yes, I actually like the fact that you mentioned absent fathers, because I find it a lot, especially in women, because I think that's who I relate mostly to when it comes to our relationships, and how we respond, receive, or give love comes from the relationships we had with our fathers.
Yes.
So how important do you think it is? How important is the father-daughter relationship? Also in this aspect of having an absent father and also having a present stepfather, or having, how can I put it? A lot of women, I know for myself, simple example, I sort of had an identity crisis when I sort of figured out that I have a father who wasn't present, who didn't want to be present, and then I had a stepfather who was present. But then I think when you know that you have the two, you sort of bounce back from being wanted by this one who took the role of being your father, and this one who didn't want to be your father. Like, how important is navigating that? Because that's also traumatic if you think about it, because it plays back in your mind and you're like, oh, but I have a stepfather who wants to be my father, but now also have a real dad who doesn't want to be my father, who's supposed to be my dad. So how important is father-daughter relationship for girls or women who have now grown to want to be in a relationship, want to have families, and want to, progress in life when it comes to relationship in general?
Yeah, look. What we understand in the growth of human being is that every child basically needs both genders because of the differences that both the woman and the man has in physiologically, psychologically, and all of that. And we know that also there is a difference in terms of how both of these genders look in life. We know that women would have a more emotional response, and then men have got more logical response. But now we need to understand, to say, to have more logical response, it does not mean that you are not also emotional. You don't have now we check the weights to say women, they've got more of emotional response And that does not mean that they are not rational as well. But the levels of that is quite vast, and then is present. Now, the importance of the father in this girl child is to bring that balance, is to bring, we can see across that whenever there is a father in the house, there is that much level of discipline, that which is there. Yeah. And then if the fathers are able to understand their roles, because that is what they bring that stability, they bring that confidence in a girl child. They bring into the girl child that this girl child mentally becomes much more stronger. And then the confidence in this girl child is there. The girl child feels protected when he's got that reasonable father, of course. That's where we're supposed to be. That the fathers should never shun away in giving instructions into the girl child. We see and then we realize that the mother, for instance, if the girl child could fall, I will try to be really very much emotional and say, hey, sorry, it's gonna be, and then all of that, and then nurture these emotions. But the father will say, arise, you're gonna be strong. We all fall and rise. So the father gives this to the girl child to say, the child say, okay, in life actually we can fall and rise, than to keep on nursing this emotion. So you find that element that the father now brings into the girl child, of which is important. Yes.
Do you have anything to say?
Look, I think like Lemon has said, it creates balance. But what many people don't also realize is that it creates a sense of security.
Yes.
It boosts the self-confidence of a child, the self-esteem as well. So you find that you are raising children who become confident, who become assertive, as opposed to becoming, I'm going to use this word, weak-minded in essence. That you are unable to make your own decisions. You are even scared to make your own decisions. But when the father figure is there, it gives you the sense of security as a woman, because you grow up looking at this, secure figure that says to you, you are enough on your own. You don't have to prove yourself to other people to be something that you're not. So it also give you an idea of what to look for in a man when you grow up, because you've got reference, but when you do not have that, you grow up looking for what is the ideal man looking like. So you go out looking for something that you don't even know what it looks like. And whatever you come across, you tend to mistake that for love. Meanwhile, you might be looking for actually a father figure. So when that figure is not there, it creates a whole lot of problems, to a point that you find a whole lot of other women ending up saying, I want to become an independent woman. Not because they've got a sense or a feeling of really become independent, but because they've realized that I cannot depend on anybody. All these men that comes into our life, they disappoint us. So maybe it's best for me to take a different stance. And then you find a lot of women going after the feminism movement, and which it's not necessarily about their desire, but it's because of their pain that they follow this kind of movement. So that man being in your life creates a whole lot of atmosphere where you grow up as a fully fledged and functional and confident woman that you ought to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then now we speak about trauma and all of these things that basically cause it and how to identify it. How do you now navigate trauma and still keeping faith? Because I know a lot of times people say, but oh my gosh, I'm such a faithful woman. Why is God... People like blaming God, actually. Why is God letting me go through all of this if he says this is how it should be, but this person chose for it not to be that way? So now how do you now keep the faith while still navigating the trauma?
Yeah, I like how you bring it to say, how do you keep the faith? I like James' version of faith. James' version of faith is not just the belief of something,
Yes.
but it is accompanied by life. Thus, he says, faith without works is dead. And people would bring the elements of faith without works.
Yes.
And I think that the first space of navigation is that we need to understand something to say there is the first part of our lives, that which is not in our control. Our childhood experiences, basically, they are not in our control. Things happen out of our control. So things just happen. But there is a time then in our lives where we need to draw the line to say, now my life is in my control. That is why then when I look into the matters of faith, for instance, in the Christian faith, we arrive in the time where we look into this scripture which says, if any man is in Christ, is a new creation. The old is gone and the new is come. So for me, that is a point of departure for everyone. What this text, it tells us is that you arrive somewhere in your life where you get an opportunity to start again. To say, there are matters that which were not good in your life. Let them go. Start afresh. How do you start afresh? Now we bring the matters of faith. We bring the matters of God to say, how does God wants me to start afresh? We go into the scriptures. What does the scripture tells me? And then you start to study the scriptures, the lifestyle that which you're supposed to really embrace. And that lifestyle, it must not be the words that which you just say. Many people, they think that they are so holy and believing in God by the utterance of the verses and the scriptures. While it does not end there. There must be the life followed by the verses that which you are saying. So many people, they say, I love the Lord, but why all this have happened? But look, as I say, there is a part of our lives that which were not in our control. But all the experiences in our lives, like Joseph, Joseph, when he spoke to his brothers, he spoke so much powerful words to say, what we've intended for evil, God has turned it for good. So that's how we turn our lives upside down. We have all turned our lives upside down. I had to arrive into the point of my life because when I look, we all, as Mr. Elijah have indicated, we all have traumas. None of us can say, I never had trauma of my upbringing. But we arrive into the point in our lives to say, now I must take control of my life. I need to change things. What has been purposed to be evil in my life, how do I turn it to be the good in me? For instance, he writes books. It's for experiences. I'm a preacher. Most of my sermons are derived from my wounds, my pains, where I have been in life. And then that is why they make sense. And then people understand, they relate with that. The sessions, the podcast we have, we reflect into the wounds that which we have. That is a turning of the wounds into what becomes a medicine now. So, but we have to arrive into the point where we become truthful to say, okay, there is a very dark past that which I have. But how do I use those ingredients to move forward? And then, but look, it becomes my responsibility. We can say whatever we can say, but until you take that responsibility to say, my life must change and I must put actions into my life, there is nothing that which is going to happen.
Look, I think, obviously picking up on that, I need to read two scriptures based on what you're asking, based on what you're saying. The problem that I have with our people is that we want to profess that we are people of faith, But for some reason, we don't want to let go of our past traumas. And the Bible encourages us, and you know, it tells us to let go of that. Jesus came to set us free from the traumas that we've experienced, you know. And there's a scripture in the book of 1 Corinthians 13, and I want to go to the James that you highlighted earlier on, to obviously cement what you were saying. It says, listen to this, it says, and I want to read it because I don't want people to think I made it up.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
it's in the Bible.
Yes.
It's in the book of 1 Corinthians 13:11. It says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. And you see, and I think this is where the problem is. The childish trauma, or the trauma that we encountered in our childhood, must be put away. You have to be aware of it. You have to understand it. And that trauma to you need to look like a trial that you need to overcome. And this is why in the book of James, it says, consider it, and this is James 1, it says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. You see, it is going through those trials and dealing with them that you need to overcome them. And you need to persevere at all costs, knowing that I cannot become an adult who is suffering from this wound, which I picked up in my family of origin. So we see a whole lot of adult people going to church, running to church, and professing to be the Christians and the churchgoers. But when you look at them, they are not willing to let go. The Bible says we must put away the old man. So the man who has been corrupted by the trauma needs to be put away. But instead, what you see is that you find a lot of people talking more about their traumas. And that's why when you start to speak SV and you say, you know, guys, I've been through this, and somebody says, yours is nothing. let me tell you about mine. They start to franchise their traumas to other people. And they make it sound as though carrying a trauma, it's something to boast about.
Be proud of.
Yeah, to be proud of, you know, because I've gone through it, I've got it. Go through it, but overcome it, offload it, and let it go. Become somebody new that can be identified without trauma. People, they identify themselves, you know, in line with their traumas. They actually learn to become depressed. Some of the depression is not clinical. It's a learned depression. And I can prove you that in psychology, we learn of an experience where people go through what we call learned helplessness. So they learn to become helpless as a result of their trauma. So we cannot carry on like that purely because you guys don't know what I'm going through. And the youth of today, you guys, you love that. You love it now, but you guys, you don't know what the issues I'm dealing with at home. Get rid of those issues. At the age of 5 years old or 3 years old, until you are 18, you are welcome to claim those issues. But the moment you are past 18, you cannot use those issues as an excuse. You are an adult. You have to go seek help, and you have to let go of those traumas. You cannot worship God and trauma at the same time.
Yo. And you actually said something very profound earlier where you said a lot of us, people in the youth, and when we say the youth, but everybody likes talking about their trauma and doing nothing about it. Can you please expand on that then? Because then how do you then, okay, what's your best advice? How would you now say, as an individual, or maybe to me, how would you say deal with the trauma? Like the best way to deal with the trauma, what would be the way to do that?
I'm going to take you back to the scripture which I just read. That says, when I was a child, I reasoned like a child. I did childish things, in essence. So when you grow up, you cannot be thinking about playing about dolls. You are an adult now. You are thinking about, now my mother has given birth to this beautiful creature. It's now my responsibility to continue building this beautiful creature. In order for me to build this creature, I need to know, where is this creature standing? What are the wounds that they are suffering from? What is going to be needed for me to heal those wounds? Where do I want to go? If I say I want to go to East, will this wound take me to East? If the answer is no, what do I need to do right now in order for me to prepare myself for the journey going to East? So people don't do that stock taking. You know, hence I spoke about franchising their trauma. You know, they find joy and pleasure in going to solicit sympathy from people. People, oh, shame, you've gone through this. Oh, shame. You know, so they love that. They love the attention they're getting by franchising their own traumas, you know. And in essence, we should not be doing that. We should be saying, trauma, I acknowledge you. The fact that my father was not in my life is not going to become the latter part of my life. It is the former, not the latter. So I'm going to make sure that whatever wound or dirty wound that I have picked up, I need to deal with it before I go into relationships. Now, people go into relationships with a dirty wound and they want to manipulate their boyfriends and husbands by saying, you know, my father was not there. I mean, you don't understand how I feel. No. By the time I meet you, you must have dealt with the dirty wound. You must have grown up. You are not going to become my problem in marriage or relationship purely because you are unable to deal with that which you have picked up from your family of origin. So your job is to sit down and identify what you are suffering from. And the problem with many people is that they are in denial of suffering. So I always use an example that we put on makeup. And the reason why some of these women put makeup is because they've got chubabas under their skin or on their skins. So they don't like makeup. They are just hiding the chubabas. So most of us, we are putting makeup to hide their traumas that we've experienced in a family of origin. Yes. We want to portray an image of somebody who is solid. But deep down, we are breaking, we are falling apart. And by removing the makeup or the mask, we start to now see a whole lot of pain and wounds that people are carrying. So your job is not to hide the wounds, it's to expose it, that you start to heal. And there's nothing wrong to say, look, I've got this wound, but I'm working on it. Now, many people are saying, no, I don't have wounds at all. Instead, they go around projecting their wounds on their partners. They go around saying men are trash. Meanwhile, you know very well that you are trash, but you don't want to deal with your own trash. What do? You project it onto the next person. Because if you can say to yourself, I'm trash, it's more painful in that way. It's easier and less threatening when I say the other person is that trash.
Yeah. Honesty is the best policy, and this is why we have this platform, to be honest and speak the truth.
Yeah.
And now, would you say everything that you guys have said? I think now that's when we can also go back to generational curses, because also a lot of our problems don't stem from things, not a lot, but most of our problems don't stem from things that we've done, but things that our parents done that fall onto us. So now that can also be a traumatic experience for us now who have to live to the detriment of our parents. So because you didn't do things this way, now you sort of want me to do it the way you wanted it to do it. And it can be traumatizing because now as a parent, you're not allowing me to grow. Because now you're saying from the age of 5 years old until 18, you're allowed to walk around and mope about your problems. But now from the age of 18 going on to 21, 24, 25, you sort of want to have control over your life. But now your parents are not releasing you from that whole mindset of their traumas that sort of kind of became your traumas. But now, let's say I'm trying to fix my problems and I'm trying to face my trauma, but I'm unable to do that because as my parent, now you're telling me that, no, at the age of this, I fell pregnant at 21 and I want you to finish school because I couldn't finish school and do this. But it's like, you're not allowing me to, you're not giving me the ability to be. You're not giving me the ability to grow and sort of curate my own life like you were saying. What do you say about that? What are you saying to parents who actually do that? Because a common question actually that people asked me as I was curating this episode was, how do you break away from generational curses? Because it can be very traumatic, because at the same time you don't want to disappoint your parents, but it's also just like, I don't see life the way you're seeing it. I don't want to see life that way. What if I want to get married at 21? Doesn't mean I'm not gonna finish school. Doesn't mean I'm gonna have a child now. I'm just saying this is how I want it to be, because you couldn't have it that way, and look what it has done to you now. Because now also, as a child, you see a lot of the problems at home that your parents have, and you're like, yo, maybe I shouldn't do it this way. And then you realize that sometimes you fall to that detriment because you weren't allowed to grow and face that trauma on your own. Because parents now think that you're a child, you don't see anything going wrong, but it's like we see a lot. And something I always say is that it's so crazy. People always say, how do you remember things that happened when you were so young? But I think that's when you consume it all. So how do you break away from the generational curses to deal with your trauma that you feel like now came from those curses to become your own person?
Pastor, please allow me quickly here.
Yes.
And I can open a scripture again in the book of Isaiah where it speaks about both the soul of the father and the soul of the son belongs to God. And it says, the one who sins shall die. I'm not very clued up when it comes to generational curses, but I think what we've done, we have gone to make the generational curses as though they are a package that comes with us, as though we do not have power over that. Generational curses are not a standard package. We recreate the future from the past. You don't get born and God says, here is your package of generational curses.
Yeah.
We are being given a choice to say, are you going to walk in the footsteps of your parents or not? And most of the time, because we can associate with the pain and the traumas in our family of origin, we subconsciously choose that. So we are not being given a package of generational curses. We actually perpetuate that which our parents have done. And they help us to do it as well. When your mother says, yeah, I don't want you to fall pregnant at the age of 19 like I did and whatever, as a parent, and I was talking to another parent yesterday and he said, I've raised this child, he's now 18, he's an adult according to the law. I'm giving him a key and say, now make your own choices. Let's see what choices you're going to make. Here are the possibilities and the options. You can decide to go look for a job. You can decide to go and to school. You can decide to go start your own business. I can assist you with all these three, but you make your own choices. But parents are not raising adults. They are raising bigger children. And that's why we don't trust you guys. At the age of 24, your mother still doesn't trust you because she hasn't raised you to become an adult that you're supposed to be. She's raised you to just stand by her, not stand by yourself. And that's why I'm dictating, even at that age, what you should be doing. That's why when you go to the townships, you find that we've got what we call back rooms. For a man who's 50 years old, that man hasn't matured. He's still a ball.
And at 40, they are still calling you Nana.
At 40, they're still calling you Nana. It's true. When you go home, oh, my Nana is here. A big man with beard like mine. Oh, boy, how are you, my son? Did you eat? And here you are dragging a wife and 4 kids. You are still being called Nana. And that's why even today, women have got issues with men who are always running to Bumma.
Mama's boys.
Mama said this, Mama. Because our mothers are not raising us to be men. And that's why even today, you go to social media now, these women who are single, they are putting the photos of their sons, calling them my boyfriend, my husband. You see what they're doing now? They are now parentifying these kids, turning them into surrogate spouses. Now, these children, when they grow up, they feel guilty for leaving their parent to go live with their partners because
Everyone.
you understand? And that's why, going back to your point, the father must be there. That the father can kick this boy out of his house when he's 18. That he goes to hustle for himself and not cling on to the parents or the mother. So that's what needs to happen.
Yeah,
Pastor, help us there.
look, it's a painful experience that you find that there are parents. We know that mostly is the mothers, not because we've got a problem with the gender, but it's how things are, where you find it that the mothers cling so much to their boys. We know it also happens that they cling so much to their girls as well. But it's very much a painful experience when these boys are so they've made it to so muchly depend. So these mothers, they create dependency syndrome. that this child, either a boy and a girl or a girl, but we say mostly the boys, you find it that the mothers, they create more of that they become so muchly dependent on their mother that they cannot leave the mother. So Mr. Elijah brought it. We know that this is a term that which is used especially in South Africa, referring it to the northern part of the country, bomama, all the time, because there is that so much attachment that which is created. And then the problem of course of that is that these boys, many of them, either they don't get married or their marriage gets very difficult and then it fails because their mother is still there. They do not practice what Genesis is saying too. You shall leave your mother and your father. So they never disconnect. But I'm coming into what Elijah has brought that quite very clear in terms of the curse. To say sometimes we just use the word curse very loosely without proper knowledge of it. Because once we say curse, then we go into the spiritual realm. Basically, that is something in the spiritual realm of which it influences the occurrences of things. To say there is something that which will be happening from one generation to the other generation, which is beyond human capability, basically, that which you need to combat it spiritually in some ways. But when we make investigations, we realized that many things that people claim they are curses, they are actually not curses. Let me make a simple example. You'll find that there is this family that which believe that they've got a curse of failing marriages. To say, we are not getting married. If we get into marriage or relationship, they fail just quickly in that way. And then now the prayer against that curse, you find that it never works. Because now it will tell you to say, actually, it's not in the spiritual realm. It's in the behavior.
You don't deal with the trauma.
Yes, it's in the behavior. You'll find that there is a behavior that which, from one generation, that is why we speak of socialization, that is, it's learned. Elijah brought something of that. To say, it's something that, it's kind of a lifestyle in this family. There is kind of a lifestyle that which makes the people in this family, from one generation to the next generation, that they never get married. Or if they get married or they get a relationship, that relationship breaks because of kind of probably there is a trauma going through. Let's make one simple thing that you'll find that probably in this family, they've got a raw tongue. They blame marriage. They don't look into the raw tongue, that which actually is the one that breaks relationships. Bayakhuluma bayawa ngathi behle esihlahleni.
Right there.
Yes.
But they're not prepared to deal with that.
They are not prepared to deal with
They
their
blame
tongue.
the curse.
They blame the curse.
Yeah.
They are not ready to deal with the tongue, to say in this family.
We've got bad attitude.
Yes.
We don't have manners. We don't have respect. Oh, it's a curse.
It's a curse. Yeah. While actually, those are behaviors that can change.
Yeah.
If you confront them, say, okay, let's deal with this. You'll start to see, well, it was not a curse.
And do you know why they call it a curse? It goes back to what I said earlier on when I said people love to talk. They're not willing to deal with their traumas. So they want to rob themselves an opportunity to deal with the real problem. So that they can go around paying the traditional healers and sangomas and pastors to say, we know it's a family case. Even when you meet up with them, they say, you know, Pastor, some guy proposed me, but I'm scared to accept because ekaya, we've got this case.
Yeah.
And then immediately finish saying that, he says, hey, but this guy na enje ungathi akagezi. Already right there, you see, we've got a case, but your attitude already tells us.
Your response to
it. The way you're looking at this guy, you're not going to respect him. So, like the pastor said, the things that we call cases are actually behavioral.
Yes. And then
Sure.
others, then you've touched something quite very profound here, to say then then we go to sangomas abanye sebayatwasa so hey trauma. Actually it's trauma.
Umuntu akamadlozi.
Akunalutho.
And you know, Mina, I was even saying to one lady, and I said, Yazi, if you stop going around, sleeping around, if you stop sleeping around, you don't have a reason to trust. It is all these spirits that are bothering you,
and
that
that's
you start to
true.
think ukuthi unedlozi.
Yes.
Change your attitude and your behavior. Uzobona ukuthi ukuthwasa kuzohamba. You know?
Definitely.
And we're not saying here people who twasa are not genuine.
No,
We
we
respect
don't.
that space. It's very important that we mention
Yes.
that. But honestly, if you go around the townships today, there are so many young women, but twasile, they don't even do anything. You ask them, why twasile? No, I wanted to appease the ancestors. For what?
For what?
No, but you look at their life, every weekend there's a new guy in their life. Sleeping around, changing men, and they say, oh, it's your attitude that is invoking these spirits that are not supposed to be in your life.
Yes.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And those people, let them come for counseling, for therapy processes. Let them deal with the matters.
And you know, you guys sparked a very interesting topic in my head, but we don't have time, so you guys are going to come back, because now we need to come back to everything that you guys spoke about. But then to wrap up the episode on trauma, healing, and navigating through faith, I want both of you to leave a word of encouragement or something you'd say for someone dealing with that, like how, just any advice that you'd give to a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, just some encouraging words about dealing with trauma and being faithful while doing it, going back to the word.
Yeah, it's the words that we've been saying here. I want to bring what Paul said in addition to what also the references that which Elijah has brought. Paul says, one thing I do, I forget what lies behind me, and I press towards the mark, towards the goal, towards what is in front of me. So this becomes very much important to say, we need to arrive, people who have experienced traumas and so on, we need to arrive where you say, I am drawing this line. I am taking responsibility now of my life. I need to disassociate myself. Yes, I recognize, of course, the pains I have, but I have to disassociate myself with anyone and then blaming everyone in terms of what they have done to me, what they have caused me. But let me take responsibility and seek help, that I find healing, because that's where it also must start. You find the people that which are knowledgeable in that process, that they can take you through that process of healing. Because not all would have that ability to deal with that on their own. Very few that which have. I'm one of those few that which have gone through the process alone because of the skills and the abilities one have acquired along the way. So you utilize those, then you put them into practice. You say, okay, it's working. And then we say, people, let them find the help and let them take responsibility. For me, what is important, take responsibility of the pain you have suffered, but to say, I need to arise. I cannot keep on blaming people. It's not. Just imagine, you are now 50 years. Abazali bami. Abazali bami bangilimaza. What is that? What is that? You've got children. Some you also have grandchildren, but you still cry on that. What is that? No, you must grow.
Yeah.
We all have to grow.
Yeah, that's very true.
Look, I'm going to make it very simple.
Okay.
I don't want to go into philosophy now. Your mother has hurt you. Your father has hurt you. Your first boyfriend has hurt you. Maybe even your subsequent boyfriend has hurt you. Their neighbors have hurt you. That is their part. That is what they did. What you need to do is to deal with the hurt that you've received or accepted from them. That's your part. They're not going to come and say, we've hurt you, we need to remove the trauma. The responsibility is left with you to remove the trauma. Do not take the trauma to the new relationships.
Yes.
Because now what we are finding is that People are even posting on social media, Yazi, after my first breakup with Joe, I can't trust any man. Siyenze anything. We were not there.
No, truly.
Now we are missing out on an opportunity to be with you because of Joe. No, we can't.
And of which it's actually not Joe. There is other matters.
There is other matters before that.
Yes.
Yeah. So we cannot be paying the price for what we do not know. And now where you are depriving yourself an opportunity to be with us because of Joe and other matters. So you need to understand that trauma, if it's not dealt with, it affects your entire life. Like he said, you'll be 50, you'll still be blaming your parents. You'll be 50, you'll still be unmarried. You'll be 50 and you'll still say, I've got 3 baby daddies, purely because you are not willing to deal with the trauma. The issue here is not the baby daddies, it's you carrying something that makes you to go around picking up the wrong guys because you are no longer choosing relationships based on value. You are choosing relationships based on where it is hurting. And if a guy comes who can fix a wound on the heart, you go for a cardiologist. If he can fix a wound, on the head, you go for a neurosurgeon. Stop going for people that are there to heal you. Go heal yourself and get well and become a fully fleshed human being.
Hey. Oh, thank you guys so much for coming to Mindful Unfoldings. You guys are going to come back pretty please. There's more conversations you need to have. You guys, please tune in. We're going to come back. But if you enjoyed this episode and you want to get to know the guys as well from Insightful Exchange, you can go on YouTube under Busang Studios. Insightful Exchange is right there. You can watch their episode. They have very interesting topics, burning conversations as well. I enjoy them so much. So I'm very grateful that you guys came here because you guys and we're gonna take it out very soon. So thank you guys so much for coming and thank you for watching this week's episode. I will see you guys next week. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment, share your thoughts. We're here, we'll engage with you. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Yes.
Hey.
Thank you.
Yo.